I'll let him make all the considerations he wants. That sentence is short enough to fit on a sponsor board and sharp enough to cut a contract in half. Because when Gigi Daligna speaks like that, he isn't answering a question, he's drawing a border. And the man on the other side of that border is Massimo Rivola, standing at Aprilia's presentation, talking about Ducati's future like it belongs to him. This is how wars start in MotoGP, not with a crash, not with a penalty, not even with a protest, with a prediction. Rivola didn't just speculate about Francesco Bagnaia's future, he framed it like the next obvious move. Pecco out for 2027, Pedro Acosta in. A CEO publicly narrating the succession plan of the most powerful factory on the grid. And Ducati's response wasn't outrage, it was dismissal. Bagnaia walked into Ducati's 2026 launch for the first time in his factory life with a different atmosphere around him. Not our champion, not our pillar, but our question. He is still a two-time MotoGP champion for Ducati, the only rider to win multiple Premier Class titles for them in the modern era. But titles do not freeze time in Bologna. They don't buy immunity, they buy opportunity. And 2026 is now being treated as a last hard opportunity. Because 2025 didn't just go wrong. 2025 created a split reality inside the same garage. Bagnaia ended the year with more DNFs than Grand Prix podiums. 9 DNFs, 8 podiums. That ratio doesn't read like a slump. It reads like a system mismatch that never got solved. And on the same motorcycle, Marquez finished 257 points ahead, even after missing the final 4 weekends through injury. That's not a gap, that's a verdict. So when fans ask why the vibe at the launch felt unfamiliar, the answer is simple. This was the first time Pecco arrived as a contract problem instead of a contract certainty. And the Paddock smelled it. Rivals smelled it. Aprilia weaponized it. The most dangerous thing about Ducati is not the speed, it's the lack of sentiment. Ducati can look you in the eye, shake your hand, thank you for history, and still replace you before the ink dries on the photo op. If the performance logic demands it, the door opens, silently, efficiently, without drama, because drama is wasted energy. And Ducati's culture is built on converting energy into lap time. Bagnaia used to be the exception, the homegrown champion, the rider they built around, the guy who proved Ducati didn't need to rent greatness anymore, it could manufacture it. Then came the Mugello 2024 pivot, the moment Ducati reminded everyone what it really is, a machine that chooses outcomes, not feelings. After Marquez publicly stated Pramac is not an option, Ducati dropped Jorge Martin and signed Marc within 24 hours. That was the warning shot to the entire paddock. If you are not the best lever for our next chapter, you are optional. Bagnaia is now living inside that warning. The unresolved question that drives this entire story is not, will Pecco be fast again? It's darker. If Ducati believes Marc proved the bike is enough, what role is left for Pecco inside a garage that now judges everyone against Marc's standard? The catalyst is Rivola opening his mouth at exactly the right time. Aprilia's late 2025 surge changed the psychology of the paddock. Marco Bezzecchi won 3 races in the final 10 rounds: Silverstone, Portimao, Valencia. Those wins weren't random, they were structural. They came with repeatable race pace, cleaner execution, and a factory that finally looked like it understood how to close weekends. And then Marc's injury removed the one rider who could suffocate that momentum. Suddenly, Aprilia wasn't just a threat. The only manufacturer that looked capable of dragging Ducati into a genuine war. So Rivola did what smart rivals do. He attacked the rival's stability, not their speed. Bagnaia's contract situation is the soft underbelly. Most of the field is out of contract at the end of the season, but Ducati's decisions matter more because Ducati controls the top of the market. If Ducati moves, the grid rearranges. If Ducati hesitates, everyone else circles. Rivola didn't merely predict Bagnaia leaving. He implied Ducati's internal confidence in Pecco is already gone. He implied the replacement plan is already being modeled. He implied the future is being negotiated in rooms Pecco isn't in. And the terrifying part is this: Ducati didn't slap it down. At Ducati's launch, Daligna was asked to respond. His answer wasn't denial, it was a cold redirect. Rivola talks about Ducati more than Aprilia. I'll let him make all the considerations he wants. Translation, in Ducati language, we are not playing your game in public. We are not giving you oxygen. We are not confirming or denying because you don't get to frame our timeline. That is Gigi's counterattack. It doesn't look like a punch. It looks like refusing to acknowledge the punch mattered. Here's what makes this moment lethal. Bagnaia is not being attacked by fans. He's being attacked by math. 9 DNFs, 8 podiums, and the same bike produced a dominant champion on the other side of the garage. That destroys the easiest defense a rider has. The package is broken. Because the package clearly wasn't broken. It was broken for him. And when a factory reaches that conclusion, it stops talking about fixing on the rider's feeling and starts talking about risk management. Factories don't say that out loud, but their behavior changes immediately. Less reassurance, more scrutiny, more silence. Davide Tardazzi refused to be drawn on Bagnaia's future and said everyone at Ducati will be under scrutiny in 2026. That line is a warning disguised as equality. Everyone sounds fair, but the target is obvious, because Marc doesn't need a scrutiny year. Marc just delivered the greatest modern comeback and a title with 5 rounds remaining. The scrutiny is for the rider who didn't. Bagnaia tried to control the temperature. He said he is extremely relaxed. That phrase is a shield. Riders say it when the pressure is real and visible. He also said his priority is to stay with Ducati. That part is honest. Ducati is still the best weapon in the sport. But notice what he did not say. He didn't say Ducati told him he's their priority, because he can't. But this is where the entire story snaps. The contradiction is brutal. Bagnaia is Ducati's only multiple-time Motogp champion, yet Ducati's most dominant season arrived when Marc replaced the center of gravity inside the garage. Once that happens, your titles become history, not leverage. Ducati is no longer asking, how do we get Pecco comfortable? Ducati is asking, how do we avoid a future where our championship depends on one rider's specific feeling? That's a philosophical shift, and it's why Rivola's comments landed. Because he touched the truth. Ducati now has proof it can win without building the bike around Pecco. That does not mean Pecco is washed. It means Pecco is replaceable. And in MotoGP, replaceable is the beginning of the end. Now we get to the part fans hate admitting. Rider markets are not driven by respect, they are driven by timing. And timing is why Pedro Acosta's name is hovering over this story like a shadow. Acosta entered 2025 with the sport treating him like the next inevitable champion. By Portimao 2025, he still had nearly 40 Premier Class starts without a win, and yet his market value stayed violent, because his threat is not based on trophies. By that stage, his story was still about potential, not payoff. But factories don't buy payoff. They buy profiles. They buy the kind of rider who can survive a reset and still look like himself on the other side. And the sport is marching toward 2027. Michelin exits. A new equal-spec 850cc era begins. Resets kill comfort. Resets reward riders who can rewire quickly. Bagnaia's 2025 collapse is now being read through that lens. If he couldn't unlock the GP25, how confident can Ducati be that he'll unlock a totally new era faster than the next generation? This is why Rivola's comment was not random. It was a strategic placement of pressure on Ducati's future calculus. And Ducati's silence in response is what makes it dangerous. Because Gigi never admits anything until it's done and dusted. He will not announce intent. He will not telegraph negotiations. He will not protect a narrative that might limit Ducati's options. His power is choice, and every public reassurance removes choice. So instead, he lets the Paddock talk. He lets Rivola talk. He lets the rumor mature until it becomes expectation. And then Ducati strikes when the market is ready. This is how the Mugello pivot happened. This is how riders get replaced without warning. This is how a champion becomes a respected chapter overnight. If Bagnaia leaves Ducati, the exit won't be loud. It will be polite. Gigi will praise him, Tardazzi will thank him, someone will mention all he has done for the team, and then the sentence will land, soft and lethal. We wish him all the best for his future adventures, not with Ducati. And the war consequence goes wider than Pecco, because once a factory proves it will move on from a multi-title champion, every other rider recalibrates loyalty. Riders stop building identities around teams. Teams stop building stories around riders. Everything becomes temporary, transactional, strategic. Aprilia wants that instability, because instability is where challengers steal crowns. Everything you thought you understood stops working here. For years, the power inside Ducati looked simple. Pecco was the champion, the reference, the rider the organization protected because stability wins seasons. Marc was supposed to be the high-risk gamble, the legacy name chasing one last apex. 2025 flipped that script so hard it broke the language. Marc didn't just win, he normalized domination. He made 5 rounds remaining feel routine. He removed suspense from the championship conversation. And when a rider does that, the factory's priorities mutate. Suddenly, the factory is no longer protecting the champion. The factory is protecting the standard. And the standard is Marc's output. That means Bagnaia is not being measured against the field. He is being measured against an internal ceiling that he did not set. That is why 2026 feels like a seat fight. Because the seat isn't being threatened by one bad weekend. It's being threatened by the existence of a teammate who turned the same platform into a massacre. This is where Rivola gets dangerous again, because Aprilia doesn't need to beat Ducati every weekend to win this war. It just needs Ducati to hesitate. It needs Ducati to spend mental bandwidth on internal questions. It needs Ducati to lose even a fraction of its ruthless decisiveness. That's why Rivola spoke about Ducati at his own presentation. It wasn't arrogance, it was intent. He is telling the Paddock, we are not just building a bike, we are trying to break their house, and Ducati understood that instantly. Daligna's response was designed to do 2 things at the same time. Keep Ducati's options open and deny Rivola the satisfaction of engagement. But engagement is already happening, whether they admit it or not, because from this moment, every Ducati weekend becomes a double front war. Beat Aprilia on track and prevent Aprilia from shaping the narrative off track. GP24 doesn't cover Motogp, we document its wars. Subscribe and enlist. This is the part where the story stops being about Bagnaia and becomes about a war. Riders feel pressure. Factories create pressure. Rivals exploit pressure. Rivola didn't predict Pecco's exit because he cares about Pecco. He did it because he wants Ducati to bleed attention. He wants Ducati answering questions instead of building weapons. He wants internal tension inside the red garage while Aprilia keeps stacking belief. Daligna's counterattack was to refuse the frame, to refuse the argument, to act like Rivola is a man talking too much at his own party. But that refusal doesn't end the conflict. It confirms it. Because now the story is no longer Ducati is dominant. The story is Ducati is dominant and being hunted. Aprilia has a rider in Bezzecchi who already proved he can win repeatedly in the late-season pressure chamber. Ducati has Marc, the apex predator, the one rider who turns a good bike into an extinction event. And between them sits Bagnaia, the champion whose future has become a referendum on whether Ducati values continuity or cold evolution. And here's the most controversial truth connected to this entire story. Pecco's contract is almost settled. Not because Ducati loves him, but because Ducati hates uncertainty. Ducati will either lock him in with terms that protect Ducati's leverage, or they will quietly begin shifting their future toward the next era rider. And the name shining high in that future conversation is Acosta. Yet to be confirmed officially, but the Paddock doesn't wait for official confirmation. The Paddock moves on implication. Every question at every launch becomes another push. Every silence becomes another signal. Every we'll see becomes another crack. And now the part nobody is ready for. 2027 is not just a regulation reset. It's a trap year disguised as a fresh start. Michelin exits. The equal spec 850cc era begins. The field will pretend that means parity. It won't. It will mean the factories that choose the right rider profile early will build an era-long advantage while everyone else scrambles. Ducati knows this. Aprilia knows this. And Rivola is trying to force Ducati into revealing its hand too soon. If Ducati locks Bagnaia early, it signals confidence, and Rivola loses a weapon. But it also reduces Ducati's flexibility if Acosta becomes available, or if the next-gen market shifts violently. If Ducati delays, it keeps flexibility, but it lets the story rot in public. It lets every microphone turn Bagnaia into a man fighting for his seat, even if he is winning races. And once that label sticks, every mistake becomes confirmation. That is the trap. Bagnaia's contract being almost settled can mean two radically different realities. Either Ducati is finalizing terms to keep him, or Ducati is finalizing the moment to move without panic. And the Acosta shadow is what makes it poisonous, because Acosta shining high in these rumors isn't about disrespecting Pecco. It's about factories thinking in eras. It's about age curves. It's about adaptability. It's about who looks built for the next rules, not the last titles, yet to be confirmed officially. But Motogp isn't run on official confirmations. It's run on alignment. And alignment is what Ducati is hunting. The rider who fits the next era as naturally as Marc fit the last one. So this is the line that locks the episode. Ducati versus Aprilia has officially begun because Rivola is no longer chasing Ducati's lap time. He's chasing Ducati's certainty. And once certainty becomes a battlefield, every launch, every quote, every non-answer becomes ammunition. Bagnaia is the headline. Marc is the standard. Acosta is the future threat. And Rivola is the man trying to turn Ducati's internal calculus into public pressure. That is what war looks like before the first lights go out. So here's what's left. The only questions that matter. If Bagnaia wins early in 2026, does Ducati view it as redemption or as market leverage? If Bagnaia struggles again, does Ducati move faster than anyone expects? And if Aprilia keeps rising while Ducati's internal contract story stays unresolved, who blinks first? Because once this kind of war begins, it doesn't end with a handshake. It ends with a signature. GP24 doesn't cover MotoGP. We document its wars. Subscribe and enlist.